Good afternoon. We are back on the Sports Bar Show. We had a couple of issues. I don't know what happened. Had 80% battery life, and then all of a sudden, zump, all drained out. But I'm happy to say that we've got him back on, and he's looking a little bit clearer this time. It's the manager of Borough, Brent Peters. Good afternoon.
Well, welcome.
How
are you all right? I'm all right. I'm glad you took the break when you did, because I had some client. I'm sure we were supposed to. There's only supposed to be sheep up here, and somebody were tapping on the door. Anyway, we sorted that one out. So we're back. We're back live.
We are back live. Another 15 minutes or so talking about it. When we left it last, Brent, we were talking about the happenings up at Newcastle and also down at Spurs with Daniel Levy, the club chairman there. What's your take on that? Do you just think, as you were saying before, it's this media circus just trying to create something that's not there?
Well, let's put one thing into perspective here. Does anybody know, in reality, whether you're still getting your salary or whether you're not getting your salary? Does anybody know if I'm getting my salary or if I'm not getting my salary? Well, I don't have a salary, neither do you. So we'll get that one straight. But you know where I'm trying to come from.
Yeah.
Well, let's get one thing straight there before we go any further. Neither of us get paid. But what I'm trying to get at is, how do we know that Gary Neville, doing sort of wonderful job for the National Health Service, with his hotels, but how do we know he's still not getting he can afford to pay himself whatever he pays himself? He'll still, we don't know. That's his business. It's not our business. It's not the public's business. Equally, how do we know that Dan Levy at Spurs is picking up his money or he's not picking up his money? Let's get one thing straight here in all this. All these scenarios and the government backing has come about because we're on lockdown. Now, if you're in an organisation that's can afford to carry on at the minute, can afford to carry on paying its executives, then that's their business. They can afford to pay that, if they can afford to pay. And to me, is it, they're in a no-win situation if you think about it, because if they don't if they tapped into the government funds, what would people be saying then? The cheeky devils, they're packing into the millionaires, them guys, and they're tapping into the government funds, which are there for them to tap into if they need to. So what I'm trying to say is, if that company who they work for, or the PLC company, right, if they can afford to still carry on making sure they pay them and they don't have to tap into the government funds, is that not saving the government and us taxpayers, or not us because we don't get paid, but the taxpayers, is it not saving them money by them doing that? I think it is. So I'd turn around to people and say, mind your own bloody business.
Yeah. But of course, now jumping on the bandwagon, you've got MPs. You recently had Nick Hancock chirping up and putting his 2 pence into the mix.
Right, well, let's get one thing straight about that. I saw a tweet on Gary Neville's tweet yesterday, and he was absolutely 100% bang on when he turns round and says Matt Hancock is going on about Premiership players, which he's got no right to talk about. He's a government minister, and he should be talking about what he's there to talk about: the health, the situation, what the country's in, we're all in. And that's the only thing, and he should stop there. And what Gary Neville is saying and said on Twitter, and rightly so, not everybody agrees with what Gary Neville says, but not everybody agrees with what I say. But one thing for sure, Gary Neville speaks a lot of sense, in my opinion.
Well, it's funny and he said that.
Just bear with me a second. But he's turned round and said he can't even get his own house in order because he can't even get the blinking the test for the NHS workers. He can't even sort that out. So he can't even get his own house in order.
Yeah, Gary Neville accused Matt Hancock of having cheek. After the health secretary said that the Premier League footballers should take a pay cut during the coronavirus pandemic, Mr. Hancock said top flight footballers need to make a contribution. What's
it got to do with? Oh, it's got nothing to do with him. Like I said, people, all these situations have come in. And listen, these footballers do make a contribution. Well, I'm not fully off air with all my facts here, but look at Marcus Rashford since he's been out injured. He's doing a lot for is it school dinners and things like that for the kids? He's doing a massive, great job. Sort themselves. They need to sort themselves out.
And the tax that these players are paying into the system.
Correct. I mean, I come back to these player situation again.
But
let's be honest.
They're an easy target, Brent. They're an easy target.
They are an easy target, and what they've got to remember, if you look at these footballers, right? Let's go back. The young men. So young men with young families, right? And credit to them, you can't knock them if they've made it and managed to get into a career, and there's a lot of people don't. But there's obviously the ones that do, as long as they look after themselves, which they have done, and they do. They're there. They're playing for a Premiership club, a top of obviously one of the big clubs. They're getting money to dictate that, and within that money, they buy. Like I said, they'll buy a decent house, private, behind gates, everything else, so that they're, because obviously people for privacy. They're young families. They've got usually the wives aren't working, because they're bringing the young children up if they've got young children. And majority of them have got young children. So just because they're making and earning quite a bit of money, a lot more money than your normal person out there on the street. That is just the way. Like I said, your circumstances will dictate. Yeah. It doesn't mean to say that they've got ready. They'll be taxed heavy, like you said. They don't realise their tax bill will probably be somebody's wage.
Oh, it's weekly wage through the roof.
Through the roof. So they've got a big heavily tax to pay. They've got, they ride around in nice lifestyle cars, but so be it. But they won't be paid for them cars. They'll either be lease cars or
sponsorship.
Yeah, exactly. And they live in, like I said, they live in the nice houses. But do you not come down on every level if you go that and take the footballers out of this equation? Let's take the footballers. If you've got an executive director, does he live in a council house?
Not ones I know.
Well, there you go then. So it's the levels, isn't it? Come on. And do we decry them? They've earned their living. They've got there. They've had to train up.
Based on your salary, Brent, you cut your cloth accordingly, don't you?
Correct. And it's wrong. They're easy targets, and they shouldn't be. What one thing about, and I'll say, and I'm in the company of a lot of footballers from all different levels, and what I will say about them, there's a lot of good work that they do, what goes unknown and unseen, and they don't want it to be seen. Yeah. We've even had it on this podcast not so long ago with what were he called down at Watford, the goalkeeper,
Ben Foster.
Ben Foster. You know what I mean? They do great work, and it's not seen, it's not talked about, it's not, but they do tremendous work. I mean, this is what Gary Neville's done. I mean, who can decry it? What Gary and Phil have done in their footballing careers. They've had to sacrifice, to be a professional footballer. Really, honestly, Steve, it's unbelievable what you have got to sacrifice. You've got to sacrifice a lot to get to the top, and they have. And credit to them. And what they're doing now, they're investing wisely with their money, and equally, when we've got this horrible situation of they're even opening the doors, and Ryan Giggs is part of it, obviously, and saying, look, we don't want no money for this. You've got to give them some mounting credit.
Unfortunately, there's people out there always willing to knock them, always willing to have a go, and even though they've got the best intentions, there's always going to be a keyboard warrior out there looking to stick the boot in, isn't there?
Well, there is. There is, without a shadow of a doubt. And why take notice or why bite into them people? I mean, and some of it's an agenda because, if you've been, let's take it into football terms, and we shouldn't be doing now because of the seriousness that we're in. But if you take it into football terms, if you've been a staunch Manchester United supporter, right, and and there's people out there who's a staunch Liverpool supporter, right? It's usually that, you know what I'm saying? It all comes down to, at the end of the day, you know, having a right good go because of the politics
the
between the
rivalry
two clubs.
between the...
But you know what I have to praise Sky for? I have to praise Sky because, you know, the vision, whoever got that, you know, if we go back in the day, it used to be Keys and Gray, didn't it, on Sky, if I remember rightly. And now they've brought in, obviously, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher. Brilliant, you know, because, you know, the two big clubs, the two main clubs and the two rivalries, you know, I'd say, I might be wrong here, but I'd say that, the rivalries is a bigger rivalry between Manchester United and Liverpool than what it is Manchester United, Manchester City. I would say that is a bigger rivalry.
Yeah.
Now, but what they've done, they've made it reality, because off the pitch, Jamie and Gary are friends. So, you know, that's what, you know what I mean? It's on the pitch. But if they went to play football tomorrow, if there was a charity event on tomorrow and you got Gary Neville on wearing the red shirt and you got Jamie in the Man United shirt and you got Jamie in the Liverpool shirt, they'd be kicking 11 lumps of out of each other. You know what I mean? Because it's 90 minutes and that's what it's about. Yeah. But it was their forthright thinking, bringing them two together, you know, because they don't always agree, and that's great. They don't always agree, you know, but at the end of the day, it just proves what life's about. Away from that 90 minutes, they're mates.
Definitely. Final point, I just wanted to bring the PFA into the equation, Brent. I know that Gordon Taylor's been talking to players. We spoke about it at the beginning of the show regarding, you know, just be a little bit cautious before you take any part in any pay cuts, because, of course, it opens up the question regarding the contract then, doesn't it?
Well, that's what I touched on. Yeah. You know, this is where I come from, because what they're doing, it's like they don't listen. Gordon Taylor and the PFA do a wonderful job for the players, right? Because they, you know, I'm not getting in the realms of politics. They're kind of the players' union, but they do a lot of good things, and they're there protecting the interest. Because let's be honest, there has been in the past, there's been scruple chairman, chief executives out there that have tried to walk all over players. So they've got to have a little bit of backing somewhere when they have to have a kind of a spokesperson. And the PFA are a wonderful operation for all these players. And we're not just talking about players that's on the front line. You've got to remember this. We're not talking about players that you see when you put the TV on and they're there, you know, playing. We're talking about, I've got players here that the PFA have looked after, like my captain, you know, Laquan Esdale. He was at Man City as a young, so obviously he can, because he was at Man City, if he wanted, he could still tap into the benefits of the PFA, because it's not just there for your frontline people. It's there for everybody that's been in and around the professional game.
I've just been on their website this morning, as you rightly say. We have held urgent meetings involving senior PFA staff and charity trustees to discuss how best we can support players, clubs and the leagues during these exceptional circumstances. And if anyone wants to get in touch, there's a PFA delegate liaison department that they can ring. So, you know, there are players at all different levels of the spectrum able to get in touch with the PFA for financial support.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, rather than the players taking the pay cuts, which is what we're talking about, you know, again, the PFA hopefully will support in other ways. You know, there's many of other ways they can support, and they're a good organisation. Again, you get people who come on and say, you know, talk about, you know, Graham Taylor and talk about the PFA as a body of people, but it's a wonderful, wonderful operation.
Yeah. Well, we got there in the end, Brent.
I'd just like to say this is a worry for me, and I just like, you know, I don't usually even our local newspaper I don't usually read, because I usually don't have time to read. Yeah. But let me tell you, when I just had a quick glance at the front page today, and this is I would say represents not just the Rossendale Valley, what I'm going to show you now. This will represent probably every town in the country will have one of these. And what I'm going to talk about is an hospice.
Yeah.
And it comes up to you today. Can you see that? Where it says, can you see it in the camera?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah.
And it's telling us that hospice hit by £100,000 funding loss in pandemic.
Yeah.
So, that's frightening, because these operations like the hospice, they're fully reliant upon funding.
Yeah. Well, there's
fully reliant.
So many, I've spoken to several in the radio work that I do, Brent, and I know on average, I think the average hospice, it needs in the region of £4 million every year just to survive. And what we don't know is that a lot of that is from fundraising activity. They don't get much from the government pot. It's all fundraising money.
Yeah, and it's frightening now what's happening there, because one thing we don't want to happen with this coronavirus situation is to end up where we lose a lot of the hospices, because they do a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job.
Yeah, I know you've got the one over in Rosedale, you've got East Lancashire Hospice, you've got the one in Burnley as well, the Pendleside Hospice, and they're, as you rightly said, they're all over the country, and they do a fantastic service.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the government have got to, it's all right protecting businesses and sports facilities and everything else, but seriously, and I know it's like, looking after the National Health Service, because they're under a lot of pressure, and what a wonderful job they are doing as well, we have to say. But when this is all over, I'd hate to think that certain towns, wherever that is, end up losing their hospice because of this situation. So it's something that needs looking at.
Yeah. Well, we did get there in the end, mate. I'll see you. Have a good weekend, and I'll speak to you again on Monday on the Sports Bar Show.
Don't spend a lot, will you? There's nowhere to spend.
Me and you ain't got any money.
Exactly.
See you later.
Take care.